They are under suspicion because this kid, Carl, has accused him of sexual molestation. The police, because they now want him for this fucking crime, they actually do raid his apartment. While there, they find several hundred items of clothing identified as the property of the missing children. But there was no evidence to declare that he had actually been the one responsible for even one of the deaths.
How?
Well,
when the clothes are there?
The clothes don't mean he killed him. Remember, he was working in the trade and was known in the trade of taking clothes from homeless and selling them and selling clothes to homeless people. And he was known for that. So he pretty much had an excuse for everything. Exactly. My next note says that, actually. The property in his possession was due to his business of trading and dealing in used clothes. He did admit to having sexual relations with some of the children, yet denied any knowledge of their current whereabouts. He also gave very plausible explanations for the traces of blood that were present in the garments, as he said that they were just from the meat that he was selling, which I think could be a very clever choice of words on his part. Where he's kind of admitting it, but not admitting it in a weird way. He's like, just from the meat I'm selling, wink, wink, nudge, nudge, which is even creepier.
He sounds a bit cocky, to be fair.
Oh, he is, and his cockiness comes. His cockiness and his cock come full on show later on.
What?
I'll tell you, the cock thing isn't overly crucial. It's just that there was a photo of his cock, which I'll tell you in a second.
You won't be posting that on Facebook, will you?
No, well, I can tell you now because you know that he's in the police station, and one of the things that they would do back in Foot Day was they would take photographs of people who they had, suspects and criminals. Okay. So they would take photos of them. They took photos of them naked.
Why?
Don't know. Maybe it was to sort of identify them, because especially if it's a sexual predator, you could possibly then have, if you have any children who are, potentially been victims of this guy, you can get them to kind of in the way they did with Michael Jackson, when they had people like kids identify him and ask what his genitals looked like.
Okay.
They asked like the potential people.
I actually didn't know that about Michael Jackson.
Yeah, well, he said it himself, so I'm not saying anything which is secretive or derogatory to him. I love Michael Jackson, but no, he says it on that press conference, doesn't he? Where like they had photographs of his genitals and stuff, so that if the kids, if say for example if he had like a mole on his penis, if the kid was able to say he has a large mole on his penis, they'd go, how the fuck would this fucking kid know about your mole on your dick, you dirty bastard? But
understandable.
But I'm assuming that's probably the reason why this happened. But yeah, it's out there on the internet, not going on Facebook like you said, but it's there if you want to Google that shit. While in the police station, Fritz had 7 days of intense questioning, along with he had frequent reported as maniacal and emotional rages. It was after the 7 days that Fritz finally broke down and asked for the superintendent and examining magistrate, and it will be in that moment that Fritz would make a full confession.
Ooh.
Fritz's character apparently also changed during this particular period. He now opened up to the investigating authorities and displayed an extremely helpful but childish and often sarcastic side to his nature. So that sort of cocky vibe which you were talking about before.
Yeah.
It was only when he was confronted by the parents of the children, or the victims, and when he was discussing the act of decapitation, that's the only times which he would sort of withdraw himself back, apparently.
Right, okay.
As a result of the information that they got, Hans Grans was also arrested on the 8th of July, and the two men had met on several occasions before their trial began. At these particular times, Fritz was always troubled, whereas Hans appeared indifferent to what was going on, so he seemed a bit, whatever. Fritz remained in the prison until the 16th of August before being sent to the nearby Göttingen, which is like a psychiatric research place, I think, looking at it.
Oh.
So they had the psychiatric examination. The trial at the time was unprecedented in German judicial history and apparently contained 60 volumes of files, which sounds like a fucking ball egg to go through all that fucking shit.
That is a lot.
And opened on the
Jesus.
4th of December 1924, so not too far before Christmas. Exactly what you want to be doing before Christmas, isn't it? Reading about these fucking monsters' fucking crimes. During the trial,
That
Fritz
sucks.
insisted on conducting his own defence, so even more to enhance to the fact that he's a cocky bastard. He was his own defence, and he remained entirely nonchalant throughout the trial. So he seemed like, kicking back, I got this shit. He's kind of...
Again, cocky.
Yeah, extremely cocky guy. But this is strange because even though the police said, that they had the relationship with him, they had now... So again, because of his relationship with his previous relationship with the police, he was given he was afforded some luxuries while he was...
Really?
Yeah, you wouldn't think so, would you? Really? But this is why I think the police just really didn't seem to care. Like, it seems like they only even bothered to go out and arrest him because it was making them look bad that they weren't.
Yeah.
And then when they actually got him, he's like one of the bros. He's like, yeah, it's fine. Don't worry about it.
I think that's why he was acting so
cocky.
blasé.
Maybe. He was allowed remarkable freedom, possibly due to his previous relationship with the police, and was notably immature and irresponsible, frequently interrupting the proceedings of the trial. At one point, he even complained that there were too many women in the courtroom, which is fantastic. The judge answered, why is that? Why would that be? I don't fucking know. The judge answered apologetically that he had no power to keep them out. So he goes, why are there too many women in the courtroom? And they go, I'm sorry, Fritz, I can't keep them out, mate. You don't fucking treat a child molester and murderer with that level of respect.
Yeah.
I don't know, maybe it just speaks volumes as to how women were treated. Even fucking serial killers and murderers are treated better than women than anything. Again, how times have changed. On another occasion, when a mother became too distraught to give evidence about her son, Fritz got bored and asked to be allowed to smoke a cigar. He was immediately granted permission. So this poor woman is on the trial. She's trying to keep it together to discuss a fucking dead kid who this monster has fucking probably raped and chopped up and sold off. And he's just like, I'm bored. Give me a cigar.
What an absolute wanker.
He's a grade A, see you next Tuesday, this guy. That said, though, when Fritz took to the stand to explain his murder method, the room went silent. While on the stand, Fritz stated, I never intended to hurt those youngsters, but I knew that if I got going, something would happen, and that made me cry. I would throw myself on top of those boys and bite through the Adam's apple, throttling them at the same time. I'd made 2 cuts in the abdomen and put the intestines in a bucket, then soak up the blood and crush the bones until the shoulders broke. Now, I could get the heart, lungs and kidneys and chop them up and put them in my bucket. I'd take the flesh off the bones and put it in my waxcloth bag. It would take me 5 or 6 trips to take everything and throw it down the toilet or into the river. I always hated doing this, but I couldn't help it. My passion was so much stronger than the horror of the cutting and the chopping.
What the fuck?
Gross. I thought it best not to try a German accent again there.
Yeah.
I just went for a default creepy voice. Yeah.
Oh, what an absolute dick.
So you can imagine the people in that corner is listening to that and going, "Oh, motherfucker." And I bet you that he didn't say it with the tone what I did. I bet it was more like, "Yeah, I made 2 cuts in the Athemeer and put the test into
so
the
you did the
bucket."
German accent anyway.
Fuck! Fuck! Move on.
You sounded like Bruno then.
I did, didn't I? That's fine. It's fine. So the skulls were smashed to pieces and thrown in the river or the marsh. The clothes were given away or sold, and the more often that this particular process occurred, the more efficient it became. And whilst the city of Hanover utilised the clothing and potentially the meat of its victims, Fritz Haarmann had always remained out of the authorities' reach. There were actually some boys that he actually denied killing. So while on a trial, Fritz said, I think it was, "I have killed many more, but not the ones that you think." So they were trying to get him for some other murders as well. And he was pretty much like, "Yeah, I have actually killed a shit ton more than the ones you've only got me for. But it's not the ones that you think that I've done." There was one boy in particular called Herman Wolf, who Fritz declared that the boy was far too ugly to have interested him. Which is fucking cruel.
No.
You don't say that. And because we know he's cocky, you know that he said that with like a little snotty, scowly face and like his nose turned up. He's fucking so tight, that on a little kid. Especially a fucking dead kid.
I know. Oh.
It's not the worst thing he's done, but
I know, boy. It's
just shows. Just fucking shows.
It literally does just show how cocky he is.
Yeah, how much of a twat he is.
What a knob.
Fitz repeatedly claimed that he was driven by beauty and sensuality, not the cynical interpretation of sex or profit. In his eyes, it was easy to kill someone you loved, and that way you brought them peace. Which I don't fucking get that. I wouldn't see that.
That's just confused me.
Well, that's a good thing, because if it hadn't and that was crystal clear in your mind, I would have had a red flag. If you were like, "Yeah, that actually makes perfect sense," I'd have been like, "Okay, I'm gonna go to a hotel tonight."
Well, I'm not going to murder you, am I?
No, not now. But if you had agreed with that statement, I probably would have suspected something fishy. So yeah, speaking of that whole easy to kill someone you love, while he was on trial, Fritz actually instigated Hans further into the murders. So even, Hans had never, from what we're aware of, had ever actually... No, Hans, I can say this with pretty confident. Hans had never actually been hands-on.
Oh, no. Oh, no.
Okay.
I'm just going to throw up right now.
Hans had never been the one... Hans had never been... That was so bad. I'm so sorry.
It was so bad.
So sorry, but I love those cheesy things. So Hans had never been the one to sort of actually commit the murders. He had obviously instigated them and had been an accomplice in them, and was definitely guilty of something, but not the actual physical murder of them.
Yeah.
But that said, Fritz at this point was trying to instigate him as that. He was trying to say that he was an active participant in the killings rather than just the instigator and collaborator. The idea was that if Fritz was going to be executed, he wanted Hans to go with him.
What?
So even someone who he's lived with, who he's had this good relationship with, it's just messed up.
That just shows how tapped in the head he actually is.
Oh, well, there's a lot of things here that, it just goes crazy. At 10 a.m. on the 19th of December 1924, Fritz received 24 death sentences in 24 cases.
Oh my God.
Just to let you know, Fritz actually said that the potential body count was probably around 50, but the police could only find the evidence to get him for 24. So there's potentially a heck of a lot of other people out there who he's fucking killed. Fritz also got his wish, as Hans also received 1 death sentence. Upon the announcement of the verdict, Fritz proclaimed, I'm going to do this in a flamboyant style. I wanted to be executed on the marketplace. On the tombstone must be